In Part 5, we leave Quirindi and head north to the historic railway town of Werris Creek. At the beautifully restored heritage listed station, our coal trains veer left and head towards Gunnedah. Passenger trains split at Werris Creek, with one half of the train travelling on the branch towards Moree and the other half heading straight ahead towards Australia's country music capital, Tamworth. The original station was built in 1877 and was used as a construction depot for work on the branch line to Gunnedah and the fertile Western Plains. As rail traffic grew on the line, more workers came to the area and a small town emerged, and this became known as Werris Creek. As passenger numbers increased on the line, railway refreshment rooms and offices were added in 1885, and in 1925 a second storey was added to accommodate the local district railway superintendent and his staff. A loaded Pacific National coal train swings round the curve and leaves the Gunnedah branch line. As it passes the waiting empty train, it will go through the yards and head towards Quirindi and the Little Liverpool Range. In 1913, a locomotive depot was constructed and a 10-stall roundhouse was added in 1920. This soon grew to become a rather large complex and had everything you needed to run a railway: blacksmiths, electricians, diesel mechanics, fettlers, and of course not to mention train crew, office staff and station staff. The town of Werris Creek grew to almost 3,000 people, and 90% of them worked for the railways. Our next loaded coal train is from Horizon, formerly known as QR National, and passes the large grain facility on the western side of the station. Depending on the mine that these trains originate from, some have to pass through some very long tunnels and get covered in soot, which begs the question, why did Horizon paint their locomotives in the most putrid yellow available to mankind?
The locomotives on this train are Australian-built General Electric C44-ACI. They feature a 7 FDL16 prime mover and have 4,350 horsepower available for traction. They're basically an AC 4400 in a boring box. The hopper cars are rated at 120 tonne and tear at 22, so they can carry about 98 tonne of coal. Depending on the company, the cars are permanently coupled in packs of 2 or 4 and feature electronic control braking that applies the brakes to each car at exactly the same time, but they also feature the Westinghouse triple valve system as a backup.
Werris Creek was one of northern New South Wales' busiest rail hubs for over 70 years, but in the 80s and 90s, as road traffic became more popular, the town, like many other railway towns, started to die. So with that in mind, in 1989, Chris Holly, a former shunter, porter, guard and railway controller, got together with a bunch of fellow railwaymen and put together a plan to make an Australian railway monument. This project, based on the idea of Dr. Stuart Sharp, a former member of the New South Wales State Rail Authority Heritage Unit, would comprise several stainless steel figures matching different jobs that are on the railways. The statues represent fettlers, drivers and firemen, gatekeepers, signalmen and flag ladies. The monument is also dedicated to every rail worker who has lost their life or lost their life due to injury from working on the railroad since 1850, and is a sombre reminder that railroads can be a very dangerous place to work. The project also included a museum, which is housed in the station building, and includes many interesting railway, signalling and safe working items. It's certainly worth a visit. We're back on the platform and we're waiting for the Tablelands Explorer to arrive from Sydney. This service is quite unique, as the train has two separate destinations. One is straight ahead to Tamworth, the country music capital of Australia, and the other is left along the Gunnedah branch all the way through to the town of Moree. The train splits in half and the rear unit will back up, and then the switch will be lined and will continue on around the Gunnedah branch to Moree. The return services are scheduled so that both trains meet at Werris Creek at roughly the same time, are joined back up and head back towards Sydney. While coal still dominates the rails here in Werris Creek, we are moving towards a greener and more sustainable future. And with that, new loads and rail freight traffic needs to come. As companies look towards more reliable and cheaper ways to move their goods, rail is becoming more fashionable, like it should be. And in June 2019, Crawford Freight Lines opened a small intermodal yard in the old disused section of Werris Creek Rail Yard. While initially built for their containerised log trains, this open access facility is seeing growth already, with cotton and containers and general freight starting to be moved again by rail. Let's hope this is the start of Werris Creek growing once again to become a major rail hub. Thanks for watching.